I've started the recording as well. So, hi everyone. I hope everybody's doing good. So, before we start the new topic on functions today, I want to check if you guys have any doubts in JavaScript so far. So, any questions on loops or objects or arrays? Any questions there? No questions at all? Okay, cool. Then we can start our class. Let me start sharing my screen. We'll open the JavaScript. Not this one. JavaScript folder as usual. This is a folder. I'll run the app. And if if I check the console, I will get nothing for now. But let's just add a console log to check if everything is working fine. And we get the console log here. Okay, so this is what we've been doing so far. So today we're going to start talking about a new topic called functions. Again, so are you guys done with functions in Python?
Yes, sir.
So basically the same idea. There's no difference between what functions do or what are they used for in Python versus what are they used for in JavaScript. Because you guys already know what functions are used for, still I'll just go over all the basics of functions in JavaScript as well. But like I told you, at a very high level, and also whatever you learned in Python regarding functions, they're the same things in JavaScript also. Whatever you use functions for in Python, they're the same use in JavaScript as well. Okay. The functions are nothing but the reusable procedures. They are they allow us to write like reusable and modular code. Like let's say there is some piece of code which you want to reuse multiple times. Okay, instead of writing those lines every single time, you write them in a function, you wrap them in a function, and when you use the function multiple times, you're basically reusing the same code. Okay. And the way the functions behave is, you define a chunk of code that we can execute at a later point of time. Okay. Also, in terms of JavaScript and React, like functions are probably the most essential stuff that you'll be using all the time. Like there's not even probably a single file in JavaScript or React where you will not use functions. So functions you'll be using them all the time. Okay. Now, basically, there are two steps. Let me just open this up. So functions are basically there a two-step process. Okay, it's a what happened? Two-step process. The first step is basically you define a function. Okay, once you're done defining it, run the function. Whenever you talk about functions, you have this. It's a two-step process. That's it. So first, what you do is you define a function. Once the definition is complete, later on, when you want to use the function, you run the function. And Python also do the same thing. You do like def, you do this def thing here and def and function name. Then you add something there. So that's how we create a function. And then you call a function like this in Python, right? So you do the same thing in JavaScript also. The major difference between Python and JavaScript is when you define a function in JavaScript, the syntax is obviously different. Okay. The syntax for defining a function in JavaScript is by using this keyword called function, and then you give the function name. Then you add the parentheses like this, and you open the block. By the way, this function is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. Whenever you add this function keyword, JavaScript expects you to give a function name here. And the function name must always have a parentheses. And you follow it up with a block here. Now, this is called a block. Okay. Whenever you have this curly braces here, that's called a block. For example, if you have an if block here, okay, you add whatever condition you want here, this is one block. And you talk about the for loop, let's say, for let I is equal to 0 and I less than 10, whatever, and I plus plus. Okay, this again is a block. Okay, basically in JavaScript, whenever you have this a pair of curly braces, that's actually called a block. Okay. Now let's talk about the functions again. Yeah. So basically, this is how we feed a function. This is called a function definition. Okay. Now let's add some code inside this. Let's create a simple function. Let's call this function hello world. Okay. Like I said, you start with a function keyword here, and you name the function. What is the name of the function? It's called hello world. And then you always give a parenthesis, and then you start the block. This is the block within which you write the function code. Let's write a simple console.log here. So we'll say hello world. Okay, that's it. Now what we have done so far is we have defined a function. Okay, which means this step is done. We have defined the function so far. Now how do we call or use the function? Now remember, there are different words you can use to run the function. You can say either run the function, or you can say invoke the function, or you can just call the function, or you can say execute the function. Okay, you can say any of these 4 things, and all of them mean the same thing. Basically, you're saying, okay, I want to run whatever is there inside this block that belongs to this function. The function name is hello world. Whatever the code is there inside this block, I want to execute this block. I want to run this block. I want to invoke this block. I want to call this block. All of them mean the same exact thing. Okay. Now the way you run this function is you call the function and you call this like this. Now, when you do this, right? See, if you are just mentioning this, you are not calling the function. This is just the function name. That's it. But if you want to execute or call the function, you add the parentheses like this. And when you do this, this means that the function will be executed at this point of time. Now, if you look at the console log, we'll see hello world here. And if you change, let's say if you say like hello universe and save it, you see the hello universe here. The way what's currently happening here is, see, once a JavaScript engine will look at this block of code, JavaScript understands that, okay, like this is nothing but a function definition, which means that I have to store this in memory so that later on, whenever I see this line of code, which is later on, whenever this function needs to be executed, I have to execute it from the memory itself. Which means, see, as a browser, what I'm doing is, once I come across this function here, I'm storing this function in the memory. Memory में store कर दिया मैंने. तो एक बार memory में store करने के बाद, when I reach this step, मैं function को execute कर रहा हूँ. Which means whatever block of code is there inside this block here, okay, जो भी इस block के अंदर है, वो पूरा execute होगा because of this one line. Now, if I remove the curly braces again, see, nothing happens. I don't see the code anymore because I'm not calling the function here. Okay, this is calling, and this is not calling the function. So only if you add the parenthesis and save the file, then you'll observe that this block of code will actually run. Okay, just to revise now, this is called the function definition. A function definition always starts with the function keyword, and you give the function name here, and you add parentheses here. After that, you open and close the curly braces within which you add whatever code you want to run. Now, basically, whenever you execute the function or call, invoke, run the function, you have to give the name here and then call the function by giving the parentheses like this. Once you call the function, whatever code is there inside the hello world function will be executed line by line. Okay, let's try to add more code here. I come next. I come after next. And wait. And I come at the very end. When I save this function again, see what's happening here is, see, first the browser or the JavaScript engine will come across this line, and it looks at the function definition. It stores the entire function in its memory. Okay, it doesn't run it then. It only stores it in the memory. Then when it comes across this function call or execution of this function, then it invokes the function which means whatever is there inside the block here, that will be run line by line. That's why we see this print first, and then this, and then this, and at the end we print this at the very end. Okay, this is the basics of a function execution. Okay, so any questions of our guys?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, basically, like I said, a function is basically nothing but reusable chunk of code, right? Which means I can use this multiple times. Now, imagine if there was no function. If I wanted to run these things like 3 times, what I had to do was, let me just copy this thing. Okay. If there were no functions, I had to do this like 3 different times like this. Okay. And only then everything will be printed like 3 different times. But because we have the function right now, one second. Because we have the function right now, what we can do is, see, calling this function once will execute this once. But if you call it again like this and hit save, we see the entire function block execute one more time. All of this that you see right here is because of this execution. And if we call it again, we see the execution happen again. This is the first function call. This is the second function call, and the third function call. Basically, you call the function once, this entire block will be executed once. You call it again it will be executed. Which means for every single call, everything inside the function will run without any problems. Okay, that's how you run a function. Now, next thing is, let's say you want to change the behavior of the function based on the inputs that you give to the function. Like, let's say I have a function here that says greet. Right now, I'm just saying hello, Aditya. Okay, now again, we see nothing yet because this function has just been declared. We have not run the function yet. The way we run the function is this. Okay, we run the function. You want to run the function again, you do this. Okay. So what I want is, whenever I want to change the behavior of the function based on the input I give it to it. Okay, which means you can actually pass in some inputs to this function, which will alter the behavior of the function. If, for example, let's say first time when I call this function, I want to pass in an input with the name Aditya. But second time when I call the function, I want to pass in a different input, which will be maybe Bhavna. Like this. Okay, but how do I do it though? Right now, this is a very simple function which doesn't receive any inputs at all. Okay, but the way you can give those inputs are actually called arguments. Okay, we have seen this before, guys. If you remember, let's say we have a string, maybe a sentence. I am the best dancer in the world. Okay. If I want to find out the index of the letter B, okay, I want to find the index of letter B in sentence. What do? I do sentence dot index of letter B. I do console.log of this. Get the index of letter B, right? If you look at this, this is again a function only. And you're passing an argument or input to the function. Now, every single time you pass a different input, let's say if we pass I, the behavior changes, right? The function is the same, but based on the input or the argument you send to the function, the result is different. Okay, so the same thing we can do with normal functions also. Okay, now how do we alter the function? We can say, okay, the first time you call it, let's call it Aditya. And the second time, let's call it with Bhavna. Okay. Right now, we are passing an argument to the function here. This greet function, this specific greet function invocation is taking the argument of Aditya. And this specific greet function is taking the argument Bhavna. Okay. Now, how do we how does the function accept the incoming argument? Okay, we do that by giving a placeholder here, getting back the name parameter. Okay, and here instead of saying hello like this, I'll just say hello common name. This time I get two different names here. Okay, now this name will correspond to whatever you're giving here. Let's ignore this for the moment. Let's only focus on this and this. This is a function which accepts a parameter. By the way, now there might be confusion between what is a parameter versus argument. When do you call something a parameter? When do you call something an argument? Now, basically, both of them represent the same thing, which is the input that's given to the function. But when you're giving that input, the actual value during the invocation, you call this an argument. Okay, this is an argument. Okay, but when the function receives that input, you call it a parameter, which means this name is a parameter and this Aditya is the argument. But again, if you look at this name and this, both represent the same thing, which is the input of the function. Okay, now what's happening here is, yeah, so when we have this function definition, function accepts a parameter called name, which we give by passing the argument here, which means whatever you're passing here, right, this will be stored inside this thing called name. This will be stored inside this thing called name, which you can use here again. And same thing happens here as well. So this name, this argument, I'm passing this function, and the name will now equal to this. Okay, that's how we pass the arguments. Now, the thing is, you can pass in multiple types of arguments. I mean, doesn't have to be only string. Okay, let's pass in maybe a number. I'll just remove the first thing. We see 1 here. We can pass in a value of a boolean. We see true. Pass in what else? Let's pass in null. You see null. You see null there. Pass in undefined. You see undefined there. And let's say you actually pass in an array like 1, 2, 3. Okay, you'll see the actual array here. So this name name is nothing but it's equal to this array. Sorry. Okay, so I'll do it like this, parameter. Okay, this is the parameter now. You can even pass in an object also. Like let's say name is equal to Aditya. You're passing in this as a parameter. Basically, you can pass in any type of value as an argument, which will be passed to this function as a parameter. Okay, no one gets confused between argument and parameter. They're both the same exact things. Just to be more specific, you use argument when you're referring to the function invocation, and you call it a parameter when you refer to a function definition like this. Okay, no other difference at all. Now, next thing is you can actually pass in multiple arguments also. Like let's say I have a function called sum, which accepts two parameters called a and b, and it returns to you a plus b. Okay, right now this is a function definition which accepts couple of parameters and then is returning to a plus b. We are not spoken about return yet. I'm sorry. What we'll do is we'll just const result is equal to a plus b, and we'll just do console.log of result here. Result. And this time when I call the sum function, I pass in 10 and 20, and I say 30 here. Okay, let's see what is happening here again. This is the function definition which accepts a couple of parameters a and b, and it's just adding up the value here. We're storing it inside this variable, and we're console logging this variable. Now here, what we're doing here is you are calling the sum function. You're passing in a couple of arguments, about 10 and 20. This 10 will go and save inside A, and this 20 will go and save inside the B. Okay, that's how multiple arguments works. Let's give it a couple more parameters like C and D, which means right now it accepts these many. We can pass in one more value which will correspond to C, and this will correspond to D. And let's try to do A plus B plus C plus D. You get 100 this time. Again, one important point here is that when you call a function and when you give the parameter, give the arguments like this, the order is very important. Whatever is the first argument here, this will be saved into the first parameter. Whatever is the second argument here will be saved into the second parameter. And same thing with these both also. This 30 will be saved inside C, and this 40 will be saved inside D. So 10, 20, 30, 40 will be saved inside A, B, C, and D in that specific order. So order is also very important here. Okay, this is how you pass multiple arguments as well. Any questions so far, guys?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. So this is how a function with arguments works. Now, next thing is, let's talk about the return keyword. You guys know about the return keyword in functions in Python, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the exact same thing in JavaScript also. Whenever you want to return something from a function, you can use the return keyword. Let's use the same thing here. Let's say we return the result here. Okay, now what does the return keyword do? Is see, all the functions have this thing called return, because every single function it has this thing called return, which you can or cannot use. It's not mandatory that you have to use it. It's not compulsory that you have to return something from a function. Okay, it's up to you. But basically, whenever you return something, that will be given back here. Const answer is equal to this. Observe something. See, we are calling this function, and this entire block of code will be executed, which means this will run first, and then we're returning this result, which means this execution of the function is returning this result here, which will be returned by this and stored inside this answer here. Now I can do a console.log of answer like this, and you see the answer here itself, because we're returning a result which will be returned by this function execution and stored inside the answer here. Okay. Now, one more example of the return thing is basically, see, we have used the inbuilt string methods already, which returns something. Like for example, const L is equal to I will end you dot to uppercase. Okay. If you look at this, what I'm going to do console.log of L this time. See, I'll see this thing here. Now the thing is, if you look at this, we are using a method or a function on a string, and this actually returns to you a result. Okay, this is returning to you the result of uppercasing all of these letters, which means this function definition actually has a return value. It's returning to you something which is storing into the L and then printing it here. One more example is the same thing again. So let's say that we have const index is equal to A, B, and C, and you want to get the index of A here. Now this index of also returns to you the index of this argument within this array, which means inside the function definition of index of, there is actually a return keyword at the end of the function. Now when you do a console.log of index, you get the index of 0 here because A index is 0. Now this is how the return works. Let's get back here though. Just to revise again, we have a function definition which accepts 4 parameters. We're passing all the parameters here, but this time this function actually returns to you a result. Whatever result is being returned to you, that will be stored inside this variable right here. Because see, this function returns to you this result, which is stored inside this variable, which we later on console log. Okay. Now, one question is, what if we just remove the return keyword here, but we're expecting some returned value? Now, the thing is, whenever you don't specify an explicit return keyword within a function, it always returns to you undefined by default. Now, when I do a save of this, just see we get undefined. Okay, this is because, like I said, whenever a function is not returning anything explicitly, it just means that it is returning to you undefined by default. Okay? In this case, if you see, we're not returning anything, right? But still, if we console log the value of the returned value, then we get back undefined here. Okay, so one more thing about the return keyword is basically, see, whenever you use the return keyword, right, the function execution ends there, which basically means, see, after return keyword, if I add anything, let's say if I do console.log of will I print, then this will never print only. Even though I'm calling the sum function, this will never print, because once you return from a function, nothing else below it will be executed. Because return, see, the return का मतलब ही वही है कि, like, you have to just exit the function. Okay, return keyword क्या करता है? It returns to you something, and then it immediately exits the function itself. Which means, once we come across this function, and when we invoke the function, we execute this thing first, and then after we return it, after the result is returned from the function, we exit the function, which means none of this, whatever is there after this line, will not be executed. Okay, that's how the return keyword actually works. Return keyword will end the function execution, and it also gives you back that value which is returned by that function. Okay, now let's talk about the return keyword a little bit more here. Let's say we have function return anything. Now we'll just do a return of an object which has a name of Aditya. And if I just do a console.log, or if I just do const returned value is equal to return anything, and call the function like this. And if I just do a console.log of returned value here, so I get back the object itself. Okay, which means that the return keyword here is capable of returning anything that you want. Let's return a number here, 100. We get back 100 here. We'll do something once. I'll change this into a template literal string. So I'll say the returned value is return value is 100. Let's say okay, I'll return a string. Almighty Thor. We get the return value here. Let's say I want to return null. We return null. Now return undefined is not required. Okay, because like I told you, if you do not specify anything like this, the value is undefined anyway. Because every function, even if you do not mention the return keyword, the default returned value from any function is actually undefined. But let's try and return an array like this. We return an array here. Once I'll change this to the return value. Returned value. Okay, we get 1, 2, 3 array here. Okay, which means you can basically return anything from a function. But remember, like I told you, no matter what code you write inside a function after the return keyword, it will never be executed. Okay. Now again, let me reiterate that one last time. Whenever you have a function, and if the function has a return keyword, right? The return keyword will return this value and immediately exit the function itself. It exits the function, which means none of the code that comes after it will ever be executed. I mean, that's how the return keyword works. Now, let me see if I can give you guys something to practice now. Just one second. This was about the functions. Yep. Okay, so I hope everybody has your laptop with you. So let me give you a simple function to write. I want you to like define a function called square. Okay, the parameter or argument will basically be a number, and you have to return the square of the number. Okay, I hope the question is clear. I'll give you guys like 5 minutes. Let's do this now. Yes, is the question clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it done? Are you stuck anywhere? So Pranjal has given an answer. Very good. So I'll just copy and I'll paste the answer here. Function func of num, return num square. Perfect. So we have an answer from Deep also. I'll paste the answer of Deep here. Function definition, very good. So I'll hit. So we have a couple of answers here. So both of you are right. Very good job with Pranjal and Deep. So basically, I'll tell you, both of them are perfectly good. The only thing is, see, if you notice here, Pranjal, I mentioned that I want a function called square, which means the name should be actually square. Okay, which Deep had taken care of here. So good job. And this also written num. So because I mentioned a square, then we can use num square num. I mean num into num, which works, or we can use this also. By the way, this is the exponential operator. If you do like 3 here, this means num power 3 or num power 10 like that. So also one more thing is, this was not required. You can have this. I've done this also. Okay, both will work fine. Overall, I'm happy that you guys understood, how the function actually works. So let's proceed with another thing now. Now we'll talk a little bit more about the return keyword again. Okay, so we'll talk all about the return keyword now. The return keyword. Okay, again, first things first. Let's create a function called, let's say, square of x, and you return x square. But again, like I said, if you run anything, all done. If you try to do a, if you try to call the function, right, square of 2, you will see that even if I've called this function, this will never run again, which we already spoke about, because once the function returns, nothing below it will be run, because the return keyword will exit out of the function. The next thing I want to talk about is, let's say I basically want to write a function called, okay, I'll give you guys this one more challenge. Okay, very interesting problem this is. And this will be used, I mean, you'll be using this a lot. You'll be writing this kind of a program. I mean, it's kind of a thing. Okay, 1 second. So I see an answer from Rajinder also. So I'll copy the answer in the chat. 1 second. So one problem, Rajinder, here is, wait, what is this? Number is equal to 2 is actually not required. You can just directly done 2 here. Okay. This is this is how you actually I'm sorry. So this is how you call the function and give the argument directly. You can give like 3 also, and this will get 3 square. This will work fine. Okay. Don't do what you did before, which is this. This is not required at all. Okay. Just directly give the value, which is this. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, good. Now what I was saying is, I want you to create a function called isPurple. Function name will be isPurple. Okay, this will accept the one parameter, which will be the color. Okay, and you have to return whether it's purple or not. Wait. You return true. Return true if the color is purple, or return false. The color is not purple. Very simple. By the way, actually, let me solve this. Okay. The first way of solving this is, let's say we have a function. Again, function is purple. And like I said, this expects a parameter called color. And what you have to do is, you have to first of all check if this color is equal to purple. Then what did I say? I have to return true. So I'll say return true, or else I return false. Now let's check what the result is. Let's say result will be is equal to is purple of, let's say I'm going to give it a purple color only. And I have to do a console.log of result. 1 second. And a value of true here. Let's change this to maybe red. I get false. If I change to orange also, I get false. Okay, let's see what's happening here. When I call the function, I'm passing an argument called orange, which will be this color parameter. And I'm checking if the color is purple, then return true, or else return false. Which means, let's say now in this case, because the color is purple, so in this case, what's happening? Color is orange, and hence color is equal to, or purple is false, which means we never enter this block in the first place. We never enter this block. That's why we never execute this return keyword. Okay, which means we'll enter the else block here, and we return value of false. Okay, this is how you write the function. Now, let's simplify this function even more. Okay, so I'll copy this, I'll paste it here, and I will comment this out. One more way of writing this function is, see, when we have only one else statement, we actually do not need else statement. We can just say directly say return false. Okay, we do not need the else keyword here, because what's happening here is I'm saying if the color is purple, then return true, and else return false. Because what? Okay, now let's see what happens if the color is orange. If the color is orange, first we'll check this condition, which will be a false condition, which means we never enter this, and then we just return false from it. Okay, which means we actually do not need the else keyword here. You can directly just return false. This time, if you again give purple, we get true. And if you anything else, we get a value of false. Is this clear, guys? Whatever is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, one more shorter way of doing this is, now tell me something, guys. What is the value of color? Let's say if I do, okay, wait 1 second. Let's say there is a variable called purple. Okay. If I do a console.log of color triple equal to purple, what will be the value? What is the return value from this?
False.
False or true?
False.
Why will it be false? I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant this. Forget all of this. Let's look at these things. That will be true, right?
Yeah.
Because color is purple, I'm comparing with purple only. And as you know, this triple equal to always returns to you a true or a false value. Right?
Yes,
Any
sir.
confusion here?
No, sir.
नो सर पहले आपने डबल कोट्स दिया था ना इसीलिए false बोला था.
Right.
डबल कोट्स आपने
My
नहीं
fault.
दिया था.
My fault. I completely understand. So yeah, this is a value of true, right? Now, keeping this in mind, we can shorten this even further, right? I'll copy this function again, and I'll reduce this to a simple thing. I'll say color triple equal to purple. This will return to us a true or a false value, which I'll just return here. And if I just do a console log of return, I'll get the correct answer again. So if I change this to purple, I get true here. Right? So this is the simplest way you can write the function again. Okay, now one more question we'll do. Let's say कि I have a function called contains purple, which accepts an array as a parameter. What I want to do is मुझे इस array में check करना है कि is there a color called purple or not. अगर इस array में if the array contains even one purple color, we return true, or else we return false. Let's say there is an array here called colors. So it contains like red, contains blue, contains green. Okay, this doesn't contain purple, right? And if I call this function with this colors array, this should return me what, guys? What should this return to me? What I'm expecting from this?
The array.
What I'm saying is, see, so I want to see this function must return to me a Boolean value of true or false, which means if the parameter is getting here, if this array contains the purple color, then return true, or else return false. Now, if you look at this array, does this array contain the purple color? No. And I'm passing in this array to the contains purple function, which means this array does not contain the purple color, and hence I should return a value of false from this function. Is this question clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, basically what I'm trying to say is if the array contains purple color, then return true, or else return false. Else return false. How do we write the code for this?
Sir, array.index of purple.
Like okay, index of purple. Okay, what does it give you back? Array.index of. What will this give us back?
If लगाना पड़ेगा maybe.
1 second. First, we'll see what we get back. Okay. If you see, we got back -1. लेकिन अगर इस पे purple है, we get back a positive value. Based on this, now tell me what can we do with this arrowness? It's a very good approach, by the way. How can we come to an answer now with this?
Sir, we simply use return purple.
Sorry.
Sir, return purple.
Return purple.
Yes, sir.
नहीं मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ कि this function must return a true or a false value ना. अगर इस array में purple color है तो I should return the value of true. अगर purple color नहीं है तो return a value of false. तो मुझे वो करना है मुझे.
Sir, if
return array equals to purple.
नहीं array में तो ये पूरा रहेगा ना. This array is this entire array, right? So how can I compare the entire array to a single value?
जो हम लास्ट में जैसे प्रिंट करवा रहे हैं ना कलर कंटेनर पर्पल कलर्स के आगे हम इक्वल्स टू लगा देंगे ना पर्पल तो जब वो उसको मैच करेगा
नहीं, that won't work. That won't work.
Sir,
Pranjal, go ahead, Pranjal.
Sir, if result equal to -1, then
if result equal to -1,
then return false.
Perfect. What about the true value then? वो कैसे करूं?
Else true.
Else return true. Very good. This is the correct answer. Okay. Now let's try to see contains purple. हमने ये किया है. Return false or true. Why am I not getting any answer? Wait a minute. Let me restart the server. Sorry. I did not do console log of this. So I'll say const answer is equal to and console log of answer. Okay, we get the value of true, which is great. Now if I remove the purple color, I get a value of false. Okay, now try it. Okay, let's try to again start reducing the code. Okay, now like I said in the previous example, if we have an else here, we do not need the else. Now, so we'll have to remove the else first. We'll just remove the else and change to return of true. Okay, this is the first thing we'll make the change. Now we can make one more change also, like this. You tell me, how can we make this code like this now?
Sir, same return result equal to -1.
Return result equal to -1. First, we'll just remove all of this. Abhi it's giving the incorrect answer, na? See, abhi isme violet
result
purple
dot
nahi hai isme. Huh? It should be not equal to 1, right? See, अगर -1 है तो उसका मतलब है कि इसमें purple है ही नहीं. Which means what we're trying to do is we're trying to say अगर ये result जो है अगर -1 नहीं निकला, which means it will either be 0 or above 0, which means it's there in the array. That's what we're returning. Then let's take an example of this one. Okay, right now we have red, blue, and green. Now array index of purple. The result will be -1, which means -1 not equal to -1 is false. We get back false here. If we try to add the purple color here, because this time what happens is this value will be 0, 1, 2, 3 hoga iska value. Because value is 3, we get back 3 not equal to 1 is true. We get the value of true here. We can simplify this even further by just saying like this. One-liner. We're saying array index of purple not equal to 1 will give back the result. This is the shortest way you can write this code. By the way, there was one more method I spoke to you guys about in the last class, which you can actually use instead of index of. अगर मुझे जानना है कि एक array में is there a value of a certain value or not, there's an even better method than index of. And the method is dot includes, right? Let me show you how that include works again. So let's say we have an array is equal to A, B, and CD. It is an array. If I do array dot includes of A, I get back a value of true. If I do B, I get back true. But if I do just C, I get back a value of false. But if I again do a CD, I get back a value of true. This is how the array dot includes work. Now I can use the same thing here, right? Which I can basically do array dot includes of the purple. That's it. That's why it's very important for you guys to know what is the right method to do the right thing. And the only way you know that is if you practice. Like whatever methods I teach you, go back that day and keep practicing them. And I spoke about the includes method in the last class. So even though the dot index will work, dot includes is even better, right? Because you don't have to explicitly check if it's equal to -1 or not. Got it?
Yes, sir. Sir, can we use relational operator like in?
In you cannot use for the array. Array may, so the best way to find that out is just go to MDN. Okay, so MDN may, so array prototype. Okay, I'll tell you how to check. Search bar में array, यहाँ पर you have all the methods here. See, लेकिन this does not contain the in method. In बोल के there is no method on array. We have includes. Basically जो भी in करता है ना वही includes वही करता है ना वैसे भी. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes. So we do not have any method called in for array. We have only includes. Okay, now going back, now I'll give you guys one more a little challenging function thing. So I want you guys to try it out. So let me type out the entire code here. I'll stop sharing. I'll write the code. Just give me 1 second. Functions. Got it. I'll start sharing my screen again. Okay. Basically, I want you guys to write an isValid password function. It accepts two parameters. One is password, one more is username. The password must be at least 8 characters, cannot contain spaces, and cannot contain the username. And only if all requirements are met, return true, or else return false. And examples of this are, let's say, isValid password. These are examples here. So if I'm calling this function with this as the password and this as a username, मुझे true मिलता है मुझे. Okay, but यदि मैं same function को, if I call with this password and this username, I get a value of false because the third thing is not met. Third condition क्या है कि this word must not contain the username. Okay. This will also give a value of false because the password must contain at least 8 characters. लेकिन यहाँ पर तो only 6 characters are there. Okay. So any questions about the, any confusion regarding the question, guys?
Sir, second में समझ नहीं आया. Second वाला invalid password.
And this one, क्या?
False. नहीं sir, last में जो आपने example
I'll
दिया.
tell you. So I'll tell you. Second, ये password है. Let me expand this. This is the username. Okay. Now look at the third condition. The password must not contain the username, which means now observe this thing. Dog lover. इसमें भी dog lover है, which means this should not be like this. Username, जो भी password है, उस password must not contain a username within it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I give you a simple, like a small hint of how you can find out about if this exists or not. Okay. Use index of.
Okay. Is this an assignment or we have to do it right now?
Do it right now. It won't take that long. And you have time till 10:30. बहुत simple है, उतना difficult है ही नहीं actually है. It's not even assignment है ही नहीं है. It's very simple. So take time till 10:30, okay? But do it for sure. जितना हो सके उतना करना. At 10:30 I'll give you the answer, okay? And I'll paste this in the chat also, so the guys can copy as well. ठीक है, मैंने chat पे मैंने paste कर दिया है. You have time till 10:30, guys. Just do it and let me know once done. Okay, so Pranjal has sent me the answer. I just copy that. My screen. 1 second. So this is the answer. Wait, why is there two answers here? Pranjal, why are there two versions here?
एक सेकंड सर देखने दीजिए।
Sorry?
तो एक सेकंड सर, मैं सही वाला भेजता हूँ आपको।
हाँ ठीक है, सही वाला भेज दो। Okay, let me copy this one. If password length is equal to 8 and if there's no space and if password not equal to username, return true. This it has some problems. And so first of all, okay, look at this thing very carefully. What does it say? It says must be at least 8 characters. So it's not okay. What if the password the length is more than 8? If I change it to 9, it's still correct only, no? But this will give us false now. So you have to change it to make it work with at least 8 characters.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So also one more thing, this is also not correct. So what, see, look at this thing, it should say the password must not contain the username. So like I said, see, this and this are actually not the same, but the password contains the username, which is this dog lover part.
Okay, okay.
So this also you can check using index of. Anil, have you shared a new code?
No sir, पहले वाला ही भेज दिया मैंने, एक सेकंड.
हाँ वही.
Hello sir.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So yes, I've got the answer. I'll paste it here. Let's paste. So the length greater than or equal to, this is correct. This is correct. Index of perfect, man. Perfect. So this time let's try to check. Okay. So yeah, this will not work because the password contains Pranjal. But if I try to remove, like let's say Pranjal, this will work again. We get a value of true. Now let's say if I change list of number of characters is just like 5, it will be false. So yeah, perfect. Very good job, Pranjal. Rajinder, any questions you have on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so I will see. First of all, there are multiple ways we can solve the same question, by the way. And I'm going to show you a couple of other ways apart from this. Okay, this is a great solution, by the way, but I'll show you other ways also. And none of them are better or something, just different ways to write the same solution. Okay, so the other solution might be function is valid, get the password and username. So you can actually say if the password not length is less than 8, okay, because I am checking the first condition. Less than 8, so what should we return? We'll just return a value of false. We don't need to check the other things, because what you're saying is only if the password meets all these requirements, then it is true. Which means again, if one of the requirement also is false, then overall it will be false. Okay, let's say the password length is not less than 8. Then we check if password index of contains the space or not, doesn't contain the space. Sorry. Which means if the password contains -1, then false again. Because we're checking this one. Now, same thing, I'll check for the last condition, which is the contains thing. So I'll say index of username is not equal to -1, which means the password contains username, then also return false. And only if all of these are not returning false, then return the value of true here. Okay, this is also the same thing. The logic is ultimately the same. The only thing I'm doing here is I'm checking like one condition. I'm checking the agar password ka length agar 8 se kam hai, so directly return false kar do. Don't even look at the other things. लेकिन अगर password का length 8 नहीं, 8 से ज़्यादा है, 8 है, and then if the password contains a space, then return false. लेकिन इस password में space भी नहीं है, then check if the password contains username. अगर वो भी नहीं है, then return a value of true here. There's one more way. The other way is, let's say function is valid. Again, you get the password and username. Here what we'll do is if the password dot length is less than 8, or if the password dot index of अगर space है इस पे, or basically this. So if any of these conditions is true, return false here. Return false, else return true. Basically whatever Pranjal had returned, right, मैं उसका opposite कर रहा हूँ. मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ कि instead of checking कि सारे सही है, मैं check कर रहा हूँ कि if any one of the condition is not met, एक भी requirement अगर नहीं मिला, then return false. Else return value of true here. Okay. That's
Yes,
the
sir.
thing. Okay, now I'll give you guys one simple assignment to solve. I mean, yeah, assignment में नहीं है, बहुत simple problem है. So after the class is done, you can solve it maybe tomorrow or something. And let me give you guys the question here. So let's say कि so write a function to find the average value in an array of numbers. Let's say if the array is 0 and 50, the return value must be 25. And if the array is, let's say, 75, 76, 80, 95, and 100, the average will be 85.2. Okay, so very simple function. You'll be passing an array to this function. So the function will be named, function name will be average, and it will take up the one parameter, which will be the array. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in the chat. You guys can give the shot tomorrow and we'll discuss it tomorrow. But thanks for joining today. Any questions, guys, before we stop the session?
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है जो प्रीवियस
हाँ,
क्लास
हाँ.
का है सर
please ask me, yeah.
हाँ फॉर ऑफ लूप सिखाया था
हाँ,
तो उधर क्या हुआ था कि जैसे कि कॉन्स्ट फिर वेरिएबल का नेम फिर ऑफ
हाँ.
देन द एरे
हाँ.
मुझे एक बात समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि जब हमने वेरिएबल को डिफाइन किया
हाँ.
तो उस टाइम उस वेरिएबल में एक एरे में से हर एक एलिमेंट आएगा एक एक बार करके इटरेट होगा वो
Correct.
हाँ तो अगर वो कॉन्स्ट करके कॉन्स्ट कीवर्ड से हमने अगर वो डिफाइन किया है तो वो तो कांस्टेंट रहेगा तो बार-बार कैसे वो अपडेट हो रहा है
Good question. Basically, see, the for of loop is different from the for loop. So we have a traditional for loop, na, jo let I is equal to 0 hai, the I less than maybe 10 and I plus plus. अगर ये है ना, एक minute. What happens in this case is the value of I is carried over in every iteration. तो फर्स्ट इटरेशन में जो I वैल्यू होता है वो सेकेंड इटरेशन में भी वही कैरी फॉरवर्ड होता है, which means whatever you declare initially, right, that will be the same thing across all the iterations. लेकिन जो for of loop में जो होता है ना, so every iteration it has its own variable, which means in the जो पहला iteration होता है जब number will be equal to 1, तो वो सिर्फ number से 1 होगा. Next iteration में it will be a fresh thing again. वो जो previous का value जो था वो carry forward नहीं हो रहा है इस पे. Which means at every single iteration, it's a new fresh copy here. Behind the scenes, JavaScript is creating a new variable in every iteration. ठीक है?
Okay.
वो सब कुछ background में होता है. But this can easily be let also. It's totally up to you. There's no difference between this and this, by the way. ये let करो या constant doesn't really matter. Because every iteration में, every loop में, जो variable create होता है behind the scenes, that will be a new one. बिल्कुल नया होता है, वो carry forward नहीं होता है दूसरे loop में.
Okay.
Okay then. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night. Bye bye.
थैंक यू सर।